Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I want to do a little discussion video talking about the differences between the OCG and the TCG right now, because there's kind of a little bit going on here. There's a couple of decks that I want to highlight in particular from the OCG right now that really exist for them in a decent way that just aren't really represented in the TCG just yet. Now, since Age of Overlord dropping, we've only had 2 YCSs, one of which was like a very small one in South America, so that one's kind of like a weird kind of in between a YCS. It's almost just like a regional size-wise. But I want to talk about a couple specific decks and what's going on with them, and like wondering like what the deal with those is, and are we going to see them come through at some point to the TCG, kind of permeate itself over here, because maybe it's just got something and not enough people have tried it. When they do, it could take off, or maybe we're waiting for something. So yeah. Looking at the last Road to the King meta breakdown here, we've got this. A lot of things do look somewhat similar to the TCG. I think we are in a large way kind of in a similar spot to the OCG. Now, they just got Phantom Nightmare, so maybe in a couple weeks we'll get another Road to the King update, and the OCG will have warped and seen some new adjustments in terms of how the meta is performing. But for right now, I mean, going down the list here, Rescue Ace is our most popular deck right now, competitively. Same thing for them. Then you have Labyrinth. I don't think Labyrinth is number 2 for us, but it's definitely one of the better decks out there. It's still a solid deck for us. Pearly, that fits the mold perfectly. Then you get to our first oddball here, and that is Magician. So this is actually a Pendulum deck. We actually don't see these come up all too much in the TCG, hardly at all. It's not even like there's a different variant. I mean, it kind of seemed like there were a couple different decks, whether it was Pendulum Magician, Draco Slayer, or I guess there are different routes as well. Those are probably the 2 most popular ones. It seemed like you kind of picked which one you liked, but they still kind of felt like they did similar things. They had similar choke points and problems inherently. Like going second could be a little bit tough. So I wonder, with this deck, like, are we still in that exact same position? Like, do you just struggle going second? Now, this player's found 12 open slots to play hand traps in, plus a couple defensive cards with the Called by the Graves and stuff as well. So for the most part, it's a pretty clean list, and they have some ability to go second for sure. I still just sit back and I wonder, and I go, why does the OCG see play with this deck? It seems like they don't even go for the Zark end board either. Now, they do have Electromite, so maybe that's one of the key differences, is they're able to abuse Electromite plus beyond the Pendulum turn 1 to just get a ton of free advantage and get into some of these end board pieces that really just give you a solid way to hinder your opponent going first. But I think that may be the main difference, is mainly just Electromite. Is like Electromite just the main reason why we can't afford to play this in the TCG, or what? Like, I'm very, very curious on what the issue with that is. But let me know your thoughts down below on this one. Continuing on from there, you've got Magician. You go to Runic. That's the next best one. The next most represented one, I should say. That's another odd one as well. We don't see that much in the TCG as well. I think this is probably one of the ones where I sit back and I go, I think this is one of the Max C factors here, right? Other than them getting sets early, Max C is one of the biggest factors between, like, one of the differences, at least between the TCG and the OCG, and decks that don't really give Max C much oomph really have a leg up, because every single player is going to have 3 Max C in their main deck, most likely. And, Runic specials probably once a turn. You just kind of summon your Hugin and pass. So you really aren't giving your opponent much to go off of with their Max C. At best, it's a 1-for-1, but it's like a bad one because it's on the opponent's turn. So, yeah, I actually think that's maybe one of the biggest things, that you're kind of giving your opponent 3 like pretty mediocre cards. That's normally one of their strongest cards, and you can even play that same card, and it's very powerful for you. So I think that's a pretty good leg up. Plays a bunch of Floodgates, a very stun-heavy deck, and in a format that's a little bit more diverse. People probably can't afford to play a ton of like main deck hate for a deck like this, so you probably get away with a ton of easy, free Game 1 wins, just with people not having outs to you setting up like 1 or 2 of these Floodgates down here, and then just being essentially locked out of the game. And then even games 2 and 3, if you can just avoid them finding their back row hate in large amounts, or at least having counters to them, then there you go. You just walk away with a free dub. So I understand how this is done well. It still irks me that it's performed as like, what is this? This is the 5th best deck in the OCG in this time span. September 29th to October 11th. That's so aggravating, but I guess I get it largely. Even though in the TCG, this should arguably be a better deck in the TCG, other than Max C. Like we have 2 fountains, and this should be a huge crutch, like or a huge weak spot for the deck. Because if it does get like cosmicked, you probably just lose the duel on the spot most likely. So very, very interesting stuff there. Very, very cool. And by cool, I mean stupid. I hate it. Then we get to branded. This is about the same in the TCG. Decent amount of branded representation, but nothing crazy. Then we get to Fire Kings. And this is like the one of the... this is the second to last one we're going to talk about here, but Fire Kings. Who would have thought? I thought their structure deck was really solid. Then they got their final card revealed, and it was Ponix. And then I was like, wow, this structure deck's crazy, because Ponix now being the best engine starter for Fire Kings, being a level 1 fire. So now the Sinful Spoils package just turbos this card straight out of the deck. Then this card just turns on your whole engine, and so now that becomes a whole new package of starters. The deck has the ability to go second, which I like, because even if you look here, you only have what, 3, 6, 9 hand traps plus like 2 talents. So like you've only got really like, you know, maybe 11 slots, which is like somewhat average, not crazy amount for defensive cards. It doesn't matter, because this is one of those decks kind of like Unchained, where like you don't necessarily need 15 defensive slots in your deck if your engine is already really proficient at breaking into boards. And that's exactly what Fire Kings do, is they already as an engine are able to play into boards and break through stuff. So it's already good going second. I love that. I love a deck that can play second and it doesn't just have to find 2 or 3 hand traps plus a starter card to like win duels going second. I really like that it can do stuff even with all engine. And it just has some really strong aspects, honestly. At first, I thought this was worse Unchained, but as we've seen stuff come through, it's only gotten better and better. And these lists, or at least this list right here, doesn't even have the new Firelink 3, which I think also could play a role in making this deck even better going forward. So, honestly, just a lot of really cool factors. For this Fire King deck, it's only gotten better with like all the fire support out there. I even think some of the newer lists have been messing around with the new Snake Eye monster with like Bonfire as like an extender and just like setup card. I really like it. Like honestly, I would not sleep on these very much at all. This is like a real deck for sure. So yeah, look forward to this. I actually think this will perform decently well in the TCG. And then we go down the list here. The next one, and probably the last one that's mentioned here specifically with like enough representation to be worth it, is Centurion. And this is one of the decks that I've kind of been hyping up on the channel, not gonna lie. I'm actually really excited to play. It's right in my wheelhouse of the types of decks I like to play. It's a very control heavy deck, and this one is a pure variant, as you can see. You just pretty much play your Centurion monsters, your 8 Centurion monsters, your 4 field spells with the terraforming, your 3 quick play, like a Bonfire to search Trudea as an extra starter, and then 1 copy of the Trap. This isn't the counter trap. Kind of surprised that they're not on the counter trap, but yeah, you have to play at least one of the traps for sure. And yeah, I think it's a really powerful list. I think it's a really cool deck. It's not a deck that's super high ceiling, but it's very consistent, has a bunch of 1-card plays. Any combination of like 2 cards probably breaks through at least 1 hand trap. It doesn't care about the super high-end hand traps of the format as well, right? Like it doesn't play super heavily into Max C if you don't want to. It plays completely under Nib, and it also plays under Droll really well as well. So I think it's got some really cool legs up in that front that, depending on the format, we've got a lot of like Droll, Nib going on in the main deck. This deck just does not care. It just plays right under those, no problem. And I really like that. And it can play a ton of defensive cards because you have a ton of 1-card plays. So you can see here, these already got 12 hand traps plus 6 solemns. Maybe we even see the new counter trap coming here as a playable card here. And that doesn't even factor in the fact that he's got the 3 anti-hand trap cards as well. So, I mean, that's just like 21 straight ups, like 20 cards almost in your deck for this deck. If you play it pure, can just go to like whatever you want, whatever random defensive cards you want that you think are good. in that current format. And I think that's such a huge reason to play a deck like this. So really, really like this deck. Really like the way it's set up. You're able to synchro on the opponent's turn. They're an archetype synchro monster. It's so generically good because not only does it just pop the biggest monster on your opponent's field, but it also just draws you a card every single turn. So you do it on your turn, do it on your opponent's turn, and just keep turboing this card out. So really, really solid in that respect. So really cool deck. I cannot wait for this to drop. I think all of these decks really have a good chance at being something. Not so much, I guess these two, I guess I'd say more so Fire Kings and Centurion have a chance at getting a leg up and being a really solid deck in the TCG. But then when you look at these two, they hurt a little bit more, right? We really don't appreciate pendulums like the OCG does. And, you know, I would have thought at least in one of these YCSs we would have seen a little more success from the new Age of Overlord cards, but just not quite yet. And then we also have this. Like, this has been able to be played, but just nobody really plays it. Not too much. Like, here and there we'll see a top at a regional, and I think we just saw one at a YCS. But outside of that, we really don't see it much. But something to keep an eye on for sure. So again, this actually dropped like weeks ago. This update here dropped weeks ago. I got some of these from like tournament results that actually came out after this. So this has kind of been since then. And it's been, you know, almost a month since then. 3 weeks really since this came out. So I'm actually expecting a new OCG metagame report soon. Maybe we'll see some changes. Maybe we'll see some other decks creep up in playability, in which case we can talk about those as well. And go from there. But that's it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, let me know your thoughts down below on some of these decks that they are having success in the OCG and why you think they haven't, you know, made success in the TCG just yet, or whether they're coming or not. Do you think it's going to come through like it has in the OCG, or do you think it's going to fall short? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comments on that. But I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.